Okay, so I've been thinking about something. I kind of caught myself yesterday making a decision that I barely noticed that I made, and it got me thinking about this, I guess you could call it, idea of like hidden or unconscious micro decisions. And I started noticing how many of them we're making all the time, or at least I am, and I'm considering myself probably not that unique. And it's just like it's not something I've ever had a conversation with anyone about. It's like it's not something we talk about. It seems to me, at least, how much of our fate is directed by these kinds of microscopic decisions that we barely even notice that we're making, because they're kind of made by some of the forces of our souls that might or might not have our best interest at heart, or might not align with the value set that we strive and long to live by. And it was, I'm pretty sure it was the French existentialist philosopher Albert Camus who said that no, he didn't say life, although they talked a lot about life. He said, we are the sum of our choices, which means that basically our decisions are the central mechanism through which we create ourselves. And then to acknowledge, to wake up to how many of our decisions are really done kind of behind the curtains a little bit inside ourselves. Decisions that are made by aspects of our personality which might not have our best interests at heart. And so I would actually just like to ask myself and us all the question, what kind of decisions am I really making behind my own back? What kind of decisions do I not even notice that I'm making, because they are either semi-conscious or outright unconscious decisions? Let's ponder that for a while. Okay, so I would really love to hear what yours are if you were bold enough to actually look deep enough to see. What I got was, I noticed that especially around indulgences, I am a victim to these kinds of hidden micro decisions, whether it's indulging in sugar or entertainment or whatever. It is rarely like a hyper-conscious decision. I'm gonna indulge in entertainment now. It is typically something that kind of happens a little bit behind my own back, right? You know, probably the feeling, I don't scroll a lot on my phone, but I indulge in other kinds of entertainment, but I just see that hand reaching out for the phone, right? How conscious a decision is that really? You're working on something, you come up against some kind of wall in your work, and suddenly that hand just goes out. That's exactly an example of what I'm talking about. Like it's so below the whole, like, your consciousness of what you want, what you long to establish in your life, and the values you want to live by, all that. It just bypasses all that and just and just basically directs your fate to some extent in that moment, but moment after moment, day after day, it can really make an impact on your life, right? So that is one of the things I noticed, that is around indulgences. And then I also wrote down laziness and avoidance, which I guess is related to indulgence in the sense that it is about what you want or what you don't want, or it's the body or the subconscious trying to create a short-term painless situation, right? So there might be things that you don't want to do that you end up not doing, not because your conscious self is saying, I'm not going to do this, but because the inner lazy child ends up taking control of your system and kind of behind your own back decides not to finish some task today and postpone it until tomorrow or until next week or never do it or whatever. And then the third thing I wrote was judgments. I noticed the other day I walked into a room, a person was standing there, a new person in this hostel where I'm living. I'm in Peru. And I just didn't like the look of on his face. I just got an immediate feeling that he was not to be trusted. And it's like, I never met this person before. It's totally on me. It's just projection, right? It might be based on some patterns. He might remind me subconsciously of somebody who fucked me over or whatever. But I just, in that moment, I decided, and I didn't notice until later, I decided this guy's not going to be my friend. Or I'm not going to be his friend. Not that I was going to be like an idiot towards him, but just I was not going to, I didn't feel it. And it was not until like the day after that I realized all this psychology that had played out in that split second of coming in there. And that is another great example of it, right? Something in me made a decision behind my own back. It's not at all in accordance with who I want to be. I want to be forthcoming and open-hearted to everyone I meet. And I firmly believe that the more generous and compassionate and open and you are towards people, strangers, the more you are setting the stage for their better selves to come out. And the more you do the opposite, the more you make them insecure and therefore facilitate the darker angels or the worse angels of their natures to come out, right? So it was a total, like, it was not a decision made for my or anyone's best. It was done by some weird structure, force, personality in my soul that that does not have my best interest at heart, nor his, for that matter. So the next question, of course, becomes, now we have realized that we are to some degree directed by these forces within our soul. The question becomes, how do we transcend this? Like, how do we grow beyond this situation of being basically Pinocchio on the strings of our deeper, darker natures, more short-sighted motivations, etc. And I would say, obviously, the first step is to become aware of it. And we've kind of done that by doing this exercise, but I would say, before even moving on, like, there's this very important point to be made, I think, about a lot of growth, which is we don't really want to, right? There's something, if you look at, like, when we use the metaphor of being Pinnocciofied on the strings of our, like, darker, on the strings of the darker sides of our natures, deeper unconscious mechanisms, etc. Like, the ego doesn't like thinking about that, right? We want to think and believe that we're in control, and therefore, if we are very prone to denial of unpleasant, hard truths, I would say this is the first thing we have to realize, that we are on these strings and that we don't want to realize that we are like Pinocchio on the strings. we want to think that we're in control, and therefore it's kind of embarrassing to realize this about ourselves, that we make these, or something within us make these unconscious micro decisions that end up directing our fate. So that I would say is part of the waking up to it, is to wake up to the fact that part of us don't want to wake up to it, which means to truly do that, wake up to it, we need to muster the courage to burst through that initial aversion to awakening to it, like it is with so much awakening. And then I would say, so how do we, what is the actual practice of being less directed by these mechanisms? It is expanded awareness, right? It is to learn to catch ourselves. First, to expand our awareness to notice when this happens, and then to catch ourselves, to have the I would say integrity to truly say, whoa, hold up a minute here. What was that decision and who made it? Because I'm not at all sure that this is in accordance with my values or what I wish for myself now or in the future. And so to basically be able to rewind 10 seconds and say, okay, so what was the decision? What was the motivation for making this decision instead of maybe something that might be more healthy or more beneficial in the long term? And then ask ourselves, is this decision actually in harmony with my values and with what I consciously strive to be? And if not, remake the decision. And I would argue that the more we do that, the more we will become basically, and this is like the powerful part of it, right? It is really what does it mean to be an awakened human? I think a major part of it is exactly this, to be able to catch these subconscious or semi-conscious little micro thoughts and micro decisions and become basically the sovereign over them instead of they being the sovereign over our fates, right? And that means cultivating in ourselves a kind of a desire or even a love for diving into this. It's the way I see it is kind of like, so you have the conscious and you have the unconscious, but between where these two realms of the mind, of the soul meet, there is like a fuzzy area, like a liminal space in which you can dive down and you can pick out things that are semi-unconscious or that we're kind of trying to hide from ourselves or being in denial about or whatever. You have to kind of love to dive into that and to be aware, to expand your consciousness down into that liminal space. And the more we do that, I would argue, the more we start to notice these micro decisions, and the more we start asking them if they are actually in accordance with our values, and remaking these decisions if they're not, the more we will be able to see ourselves waking up and being less popified, less Pinnocciofied by hidden structures and mechanisms and motivations. I bet it would also make us less manipulable, right? Because manipulation works exactly on this. Manipulation works by subconsciously influencing us. And the better you can be at noticing and catching yourself, the better we will also become at noticing that when we're being manipulated. Good. So, just to, I don't know. If you wanna share your discoveries of what kinds of decisions you make behind your own back, I would find it really, really great. And apart from that, I would say never forget